wireless network box here mounted on the side of the gimbal. There's another one under the nose of the drone. So although they're not actually connected, they're talking to each other. And what that does is when this has a hit of wind or something like a bird hits it, for example, it tells the gimbal to brace. And likewise, if I'm spinning the gimbal at high speed and suddenly stop, it tells the drone to brace. So they're talking to each other all the time, telling each other millions of times a second. The thing down here, if you've got different cameras on and bits and pieces, it can also do waypoint mission programming. So rather than using these screens, we put a good old iPad on the top, and we use a program called Ground Station Pro from DJI, and you can program a set of waypoints, how high you want it to fly, what speed you want it to fly, and then you program what camera's on the drone, what camera lens is on the drone, what size sensor and how much overlap, and then we can do something called photogrammetry. It takes off automatically, goes along, takes thousands of photos which you then stitch together into three-dimensional models. And with this one here, we lifted a camera called a Hasselblad H6D, which is a 100 megapixel medium format. So in these mobile phones, you've got a 1 2/3 sensor. It's about 4.6 millimeters across, the camera sensor. This is a Super 35, which means it's about 24 millimeters across, which means in reality it's actually about 70 times bigger than your mobile phone sensor. A Hasselblad medium format is 54.6 millimeters across. Okay, so it's 4 times the size of this. The benefit of bigger sensors is you get what's called a bigger photo sight. So although this is a 24mm sensor, it's actually a lower megapixel count than any of the mobile phones. Mobile phones are 12, 15 megapixel. This is only 8.9 megapixel because 4K video is only 8.834 megapixels. That's it. So there's no point cramming any more pixels on if I'm not going to use them. But what it means is my photo sight, which is the actual sensor component, is probably 1,000 times bigger for each one on this than it would be on a mobile phone. So when you get into low light situations, the mobile phone gets all pixelated and can't cope. This just goes, yeah, bring it on, don't give a shit. It's just getting loads and loads of information per photo sight. So flying at night and stuff like that's much better.
What's the cost of this, like, other than the camera?
There's about 25 grand sitting there. Yeah, including everything.
So how did you get into doing this profession?
So very, very long story short, I had cancer. And during my cancer, you have that whole, fuck, I'm going to die, I'm not going to die, well, whatever. So I thought, do you know what, if I make it, I'm going to enjoy my life. I made it. Exactly.
Yeah. Congratulations.
But during my recovery, one of the things I'd always wanted to do was fly model aeroplanes. So I basically bought a model helicopter and I joined a model flying club, and then I bought a plane, and it kind of snowballed into everything. And then there was this crazy nutty German guy that was inventing drones, and he was writing code and putting it on the internet on Google and going, help yourself, if you can make it better, give it back. We never made it better, but we were happy to use it. I've got one of those drones from the old days back in the back of the van, which is going on an exhibition here. But we used to take the Nintendo nunchucks apart from the Nintendo Wii and take the accelerometers out to make these things, the IMUs. So we used to make our own ones. If you were really lucky, which I was, and it's in the back of the van, I found someone stupid enough to break their iPhone free, and back then you couldn't repair the screens. But the IMUs in those things are fucking epic compared to the Nintendo nunchucks. So I took those out. Now, to give you an idea of comparison, we could get just under, depending on how big your lines of code were, 600 lines of code onto a memory chip. That was it. So you could program it to how many motors, and then you could get it to take off and fly. No self-hovering, no GPS, nothing. It's purely manual flight. This has got more than 1.2 million lines of code on it.
Oh wow!
It's got a 64 gigabyte memory card built, or memory device built into the main unit, compared to 32 kilobytes on the original ones. Yeah. So this is like this is like a spaceship. You know, it's like it's the smartphone to the original spaceship. You know what I mean? It's that extra leap forward. The crazy German guy went on to form a company called KK. So if you ever heard of the KK series of boards, they were sold in Hobby King. A lot of people bought those. They went on for years. And the guy that showed me how to make Nintendo nunchucks into a control board went on to become the multi-Wii boards. So that's where the multi-Wii comes from. It's the Nintendo Wii. So I was very, very early in it, but by no stretch of the imagination was I a pioneer. I was just someone that went along for the ride. You know.
So what year was that?
My first drone was 2007. So most people have only seen these the last 4 or 5 years. The one that's in the back of my car is 16 years old.
Oh wow!
15 years old.
How old are you?
Me.
You don't mind.
I'm always curious. Have a guess, because I always look really fucking old for my age.
45.
I will not be offended. How old?
No.
What? So close.
What did you say?
45. So very, very close.
46.
46. I'll be 47 in a couple of months' time. So yeah, I always do something different for my birthday every year, and my 31st birthday was I gave myself cancer and bought it. But yeah, so yeah, I started flying the model planes, and I wanted to do a job. I'd been a supermarket manager, I've been a salesman for years, and I just fucking hated it. It was shit jobs. You're working with other people and crap hours. I worked out with the supermarket management, I would have actually got paid more money by the hour sitting on the checkout than I would have done under my management salary with the hours I was doing.
Oh, wow.
So if I can give anybody one piece of advice in life, nobody gets off this planet alive. Yeah. Apart from maybe a few astronauts, and they're lucky if they get back. So, do what makes you happy. Yeah, seriously, because you'll get to my age and you'll look back at the 15, 20 years you spent in shit jobs going, why the fuck did I do this? Yeah. And probably one of the most exciting things in terms of jobs in the industry is any jobs that you guys are doing in 5 to 10 years time probably don't exist now.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I'm running an aerial photography filming business using drones. That did not exist a decade ago. Yeah, nobody was doing it. So the other company I run is a company called Aero Ava Limited, and we do the light shows with swarms of drones.
Ah.
That's awesome. So at the moment we've got our permit going through with the CAA. We've got the drones on order. They're manufacturing in America. As soon as they come over, we're planning to do some shows and do some testing down here. We've done testing here before to get the system working. But that's good fun. The scary bit of that is you have 100 drones up and then they all bunch up together to land. So you have this moment when they're all set out and they go, and you'll actually notice it makes the same noise as my arse cheeks. And then they all land. But we use a system called RTK for that, whereas this is just GPS. We can link RTK to this, and RTK is a ground anchored GPS. So this is looking at the moment for all the satellites in the sky, and it's normally reading about 10 or 12. It's reading 11. And it's reading position from 11 locations. What RTK does is it sits on the ground next to you, does all of that as well, and then tells you exactly where it is. So you've got a constant ground position. So GPS accuracy is around 5 meters per pixel.
Oh, wow.
RTK brings that down to about 5 millimeters per pixel. So
Oh, damn.
so
That's so
mapping
good.
that we've done with this, I was telling you about the auto systems. With the Hasselblad camera, we went down Queen's Park railway line in London. So we did a mile of track. And flying at 35 meters above the ground, we were able to take 1 millimeter per pixel from the camera. So you can actually now zoom in and read the brand on a chewing gum wrapper.
Oh, wow.
You can't read the ingredients, but you can see if it's Wrigley's or Extra or whatever. And then what we also used is ground anchor points, which look like little BMW logos, like a little propeller. So 2 black squares, 2 white squares. They're put on the ground. We put about 100 of them out, and that's where the guys have gone and put the little stand and tripod on it and linked it to GPS. And when we make our 3D map, they've got maybe 100 points that are GPS accurate to 0.5 millimeter, and they are millimeter perfect in our photograph. So they can now stretch the plan, and then they can make a mile of track model, 3-dimensional model, millimeter perfect, and they can actually then go in and work out exactly how many tons of mud they've got to move, how many meters of track they've got to move, how many railway sleepers they've got to move. No guessing. You're talking of accuracy to probably a couple of kilos in terms of how much soil. The only thing that you can't do is penetrate water. So that's where if you've got a flood on a piece of land like a quarry, you still have to send the guy out with his pole to measure that. Yeah.
Poor guy. With those massive coordinated drone light shows, from what you're talking about, it sounds like they don't talk to each other, they just have their own mapping.
They don't talk to each other at all. So there's 2 types of systems. Currently, I'm going to show off, world record holder for the UK and world record holder for the full top.
You're allowed to show off like that.
No, I'm not saying. I organised the world's biggest indoor show at the time, which was back for BT when they launched the new BT logo in 2019, 2020. Anyway, we had 160 of them flying inside the Wembley Arena behind Jessica Glynn on stage. So we had half the stadium for that. When you go indoors, the drone has no GPS because it can't look through the roof of the building to the satellite. It's got nothing. So if you've got a Nintendo Connect that scans the room with infrared, I'm not taking the piss. We make a fish tank out of Xbox Connects basically. We scan the room, so we make a virtual tank. You can't see it; it's invisible. But we have them scanning from outside perimeters to create this 3-dimensional tank. And what that does then is the computer reads that, and it's scanning where the drones are. So it's visually mapping the drones all the time. Each drone has its own code, and then the computer says drone 66, you're in the wrong position, move here, move there, and it does it like that. When we do it outside, we use RTK to increase the accuracy. We use what we call virtual display performance slots. So what we do is the system creates a GPS map of the area. So we'll take a big section of runway, let's say 100 meters by 100 meters, and it creates a virtual chessboard of a meter square by a meter square. You get the idea. It then assigns a flight plan to each grid. So if we've got a 100 drone show, it puts out a 100 drone grid, and every drone gets every mission plan uploaded to it. So it's capable of flying whatever slot or performance slot it's in. It gets every single one. When we walk out, we switch the light on underneath to a pulse light, which is green, and it is like playing Marco Polo. You walk around like this, and it's white, then it goes orange, then it goes kind of orangey green, and then green. Put it down. Yeah, and that's the performance slot. So it's allocated a performance slot. Now it's there. If I walk over it with another one, they both go red because it says there's 2 in the slot. So I walk along like this, orange, orange, green, green. There you go. And we have to do that 100 times. So we start with the corners. We start with the corners, and then you can pretty much make a line out.
Oh, it's like a puzzle.
But what makes it even better is the system is recording it live. So we see on the computer screen, we can look at a 3-dimensional virtual map, and we can actually see the grid.
So if you're missing one, you know which one you're missing.
So if I was doing a 100 drone show, I'd have 110 plugged in and set up, and there'd be 10 in a pits area. And even when I arm all 110, those 10 will go, well, I'm not in a performance slot, so I ain't doing fuck all. Yeah, and they just sit there and don't arm. But if I'm looking at my virtual performance, I'm looking at one and it's maybe hovering a metre above the ground, then its heartbeat's wrong or its RTK reading's wrong. Yeah, I can wait a minute and it'll probably come back, or I can ask it to reset and it'll probably come back. If I ask it to reset and it's still up here, or it's underground, or it's not doing what it's wanting to do, I grab it, I grab one of those 10 and I put it in and carry on.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why we have the spares.
So what's the failure rate usually for 100 drones?
Failure?
Yeah, what's the failure rate for 100 drones usually?
Well, it has to get through 16 fail-safes before it fails. So, and about 12 of those fail-safes are on the ground. So when you, first off, the first fail-safe is I'm in a display slot, I'm not in a display slot. Okay, there's fail-safe number 1. Second fail-safe is it decides if it's got enough battery or enough GPS signal or enough RTK signal or enough it goes through about 8 steps. There's 9 failure points. It will then do an internal system check to make sure it's not overheating and some other bits and pieces. And then when you go to arm, it will then take off and arm, and it will then start to look for unusual motion or movement. So if it feels like it's going faster than its programming, it will actually shut itself down and land where it is. It will descend and land wherever it is. While they're flying, we've got multiple buttons. One is my oh fuck button, which will never get pressed because you hit it and all 100 will fall out of the sky.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's my company bankrupt. So that's why it will never get hit. But the answer for that is it's a CAA requirement. We have ADBS, which is, I can't remember what it actually stands for, but basically any aircraft flying around has an ADBS transponder on it, and it transmits its location in real time. So if you get some of the newer DJI drones like the Air 2S and the Air Mavic 3 and stuff like that, they've got ADBS built in, and it will tell you if an aircraft's coming towards you. So during a show, we're monitoring that, and if I get an aircraft that I think is going to come into my flight space, the first thing I do is, because a lot of the drones might be black, they might be turned off, there might be no lights until they're actually switched on and lit up. The first thing I'll do is I'll go in, I'll select every drone and I'll hit strobe light, and then every single one will just start flashing white as bright as it can. If the airplane pilot is too stupid to realise that's not a group of swans and fly around me, then the next thing I'll do is select all, descend and land, and I'll get them all coming straight down. And if he decides to be a real bastard and speed up at my swarm, then I'm going to have to get my red button and kill them all. Because human life in the aircraft before the drones. We operate over a sterile ground area, so we'd never fly over a crowd of people or over anybody. So if you've seen any of the ones that have been done, there was the Edinburgh Hogmanay one. That was done in a field like this and then superimposed over Hogmanay. It was not done live. The one at Buckingham Palace at the weekend was done by a company called Sky Magic. That was done live. The one at the O2 Arena the last 2 Christmases for New Year's Eve was actually done the day before.
Really?
Because they don't want people coming down to view it. They don't want spectators. Yeah. So and the shot makes it look like it's over the O2, and in fact it was over the Thames, floating over the Thames. They took off from an area around the corner. So there was no risk. Yeah.
That's it.
If anybody wants to see, I'll grab my iPad. I've got a video of some of the latest work that this drone's done. If anybody wants to see that.
Do you have a